Let's talk about how we use factoring to solve equations. So something really great about the real numbers is that we have this property called the zero product property. That means that if you multiply two things together and the answer is 0, then one of those numbers has to be 0. So you can't multiply two numbers and get 0 without one of those numbers being 0. So how do we use that? Suppose we have this equation that's factored, 2w plus 5 times 3 minus w, and we know it equals 0. Then what I know is that either 2w plus 5 is 0 or 3 minus w is 0. This isn't true if it was equal to some other number. If it was equal to 6, I could have that the first one is 1, the second one is 6, the first one is 2, the second one is 3, right? So this only works when that right-hand side there is a 0. So now what I know is I can solve each of these equations, the linear equations, separately. So I could add w to both sides and get 3 equals w, or I could subtract 5 from both sides and then divide by 2 and get w equals negative 5 halves. So this equation that's factored out has two solutions, negative 5 halves or 3. And I can do that with as many factors as I want. If there are 3 factors, as in this second example, I can say negative 4 is 0, or y minus 2 is 0, or negative y minus 1 is 0. Negative 4 can't equal 0, though, so that doesn't help me at all. That doesn't give me any solutions. I'm going to add 2 to both sides to get y is 2. I'm going to add 1 to both sides to get negative y is 1. I'm going to divide by negative 1 to get y equals negative 1. So there are, again, 2 solutions to this equation. Y is 2 or y is negative 1. So how do I use that? Well, I use that by solving equations with factoring. So I'm going to do a quadratic. I'm going to factor it using all those methods we practiced earlier, and I'm going to have it equal to 0. So then I can set each factor 0, and I'm good to go. So solve each of the quadratic equations by factoring. Remember, the zero product property only works when things are equal to 0, so you have to start by making it equal to 0. To do that, I can subtract 48x from both sides. So 3x squared minus 48x equals 0. Now I'm going to look for our greatest common factor. And in this example, the greatest common factor is 3x. So I have 3x times, when I do 3x squared divided by 3x, I'm left with just x. When I do negative 48 divided by 3x, I'm left with minus 16 equals 0. So now I have 2 factors multiplied together equal to 0. So I can use that zero product property, and I can say 3x is 0 or x minus 16 is 0. Solve them. X is 0 or x is 16. So my solution, which we sometimes write in curly braces like this, is 0 comma 16. Okay, second one. Notice that in this second one, everything's already set to 0. You don't have to do any work first. I'm still going to start by finding the greatest common factor. And what I see in this one is that the greatest common factor is negative x. So I see that each of them have an x that can go in, and they all have a negative 1 in the front. So I'm going to take a negative x out into the front. When I divide the first term by negative x, I'm left with 3x squared. When I divide the second term by negative x, I'm left with positive 5x. And when I divide the third term by negative x, I'm left with positive 2. Okay, so now I'm going to factor this. I'm going to put this 3x squared plus 5x plus 2 over here on the side to try to factor it. I'm going to use the factor by grouping method. A is 3, B is 5, C is 2. So A times C is 6. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to make 6 and add to make 5. So I could use 1 and 6. I could use 2 and 3. 1 plus 6 makes 7. 2 plus 3 makes 5. There's my factor pair. So this is going to be 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. I rewrite it as 3x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 2. I factor by grouping the first term, factor by grouping the second term. The first term has an x in common. which leaves me with a 3x plus 2. The second term has a 1 in common because 3 and 2 don't have anything in common. And that leaves me with 3x plus 2. Take that 3x plus 2 out into the front, and I'm left with x plus 1. So over there, we factored this second half, 3x squared plus 5x plus 2, into 3x plus 2 and x plus 1. Now I use that zero product property. Negative x is 0, or 3x plus 2 is 0, or x plus 1 is 0. So divide by negative 1 tells me x is 0. Subtract 2, divide by 3, x is negative 2/3, and then subtract 1, x is negative 1. So my solution set for this one looks like 0, or negative 2/3, or negative 1.